Perhaps the most maddening nutrition advice we get given by people when we are trying to turn our lives around, lose the weight that we're carrying, or try to turn around our metabolic issues that destroy our quality of life. The most maddening advice we get given by people is that you can eat anything you want in moderation. It's a mantra. Usually a mantra for people who eat a lot of things they shouldn't eat and have lost total sight of what moderation is and what a serving size is. Because you can lose weight and maintain good body health by counting calories. It's just the least sustainable way to do it. It's the easiest one to fall off the wagon on and the most miserable way to do it. And virtually no one disagrees that if you only eat 1,200 calories a day for a long time, you're going to lose a bunch of body fat. That's true. You're just going to hate life while doing it. But we're told moderation is key. You can eat anything you want in moderation. It ignores a few basic little facts of reality that we should really talk about here. And the first is that we live in a culture that is addicted to sugar. At some point in the last 150 years, Americans and Europeans figured out how to make sugar on a large scale and make it very, very cheap. We discovered several plants that can provide sugar for us, including beets and a few other things, and we started making it on a mass scale. When you make anything on a mass scale, the price comes down dramatically, to the point where a bag of sugar is one of the cheapest things you can buy in the grocery store, which becomes a problem. It's also why you see sugar in everything. And not only is it like beets and sugarcane, it's in corn, one of the most widely grown things on the planet. Corn sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and other variations of corn syrup are in pretty much every processed food, including things you would think it's not going to be in. Like, I don't know, you ever looked at the label of those healthy TV dinners? We'll put healthy in air quotes. Those healthy TV dinners that are on the frozen food aisle, they are loaded with sugar as well. We are a sugar-addicted culture, and it's very easy if you've restricted yourself from sugar for a long period of time to, once again, go off the deep end and completely lose your sense of self-control, because sugar should be regulated. It really should be. But unfortunately, it's not, and probably never going to be. That's one thing people lose sight of when they say you can do anything you want in moderation. Ask the person who has been recovering from a bad drinking habit, who had a long history of consuming far more alcohol than is ever advisable, if they can handle such things in moderation. That is the level we're talking here, folks. It is very easy to go on a multi-month bender of sugar and pastries and other things that you should never really eat once you've broken those bad habits, once you're trying to fix that broken metabolism, or your Hashimoto's or whatever, or you're trying to burn off all the body fat that you've stored up. Once you've gone there and gone like zero carb or low carb, sugar is one of those things you cannot play footsie with. You just can't go back. And the thing is, high carb foods are essentially just different forms of sugar. That's all they really are. In my old life, I loved things like white rice. Absolutely loved it. White rice is basically just sugar. That's all it is. Moderation is not going to help. At least not help me in that case. That it becomes the excuse. The idea that you can eat anything in moderation, it becomes an excuse really for including junk in your diet. Highly processed junk. And again, the other thing we as a culture are addicted to are not just sugar, but we are addicted also to convenience and comfort. Convenience and comfort. Meaning a lot of people, for instance, who eat bread, don't make their own bread because it takes too much time and their hands tend to hurt after they've cooked it. That's understandable. It's a pretty arduous task. So they go down to the store and there's 5, 6 different varieties in some stores of artisan breads, not to mention that whole wall of quote unquote bread that is in a lot of European countries marked as cake because it's got so much sugar in it. We're addicted to comfort. We don't want to take the time, hence why the frozen food aisle exists, hence why the whole middle of the store exists. Things that once upon a time we would have made ourselves. Those things, because they're shelf-stable, are loaded with a bunch of additives that destroy your metabolism, that cause a whole host of consequences for some people. You remember how it used to be pretty commonly known that aspartame has side effects for some people. So that's why a lot of people decided, well, they can't drink normal soft drinks, So they stop drinking diet sodas too, meaning all they drink is bottled water. And maybe, mineral waters and things, but they don't drink anything else because aspartame caused them a whole host of problems. And it's not just aspartame. There are all sorts of strange ingredients in processed foods to make them shelf stable or make the bread softer or to really bring out the color in the food. You name it, anything you might want to do to make a food look more appetizing, especially if it's supposed to sit in a can or a box for months and still be edible. Those things can have consequences for some people. And yet a lot of people eat them all the time anyway, and their health just deteriorates. That's why, again, another reason moderation doesn't necessarily work. The one approach that everybody should agree on to losing your excess body weight and fixing those diet-related, nutrition-related metabolic issues should be, without question, getting to a clean, whole foods diet, eliminating as much as possible the processed foods, learning how to make some of your own things if you need to do so. Things like making your own mayonnaise. It's not that hard to do, but of course, it gets a little harder to do if you are trying to eliminate seed oils, which are also in pretty much every comfort and convenience food. Have you ever looked up what the old recipes for mayonnaise were before cottonseed oil and soybean oil became parts of the human diet? It's interesting to see. It used to be olive oil and a few other things like it. It's not that hard to make. It really isn't. And I'm not advocating that you on a carnivore diet eat it. I'm just pointing out that we have the tools to make it almost effortlessly, and yet almost nobody does. Because it's just inconvenient. And then, of course, the other one is cost. We love things cheap. And, of course, when you can make a box of quote-unquote stroganoff, like Hamburger Helper, in a box, and sell it for $1.50 for a single box, and then a pound of hamburger when it's on sale for $3, those two ingredients make a meal. It's not a good meal. It's not a meal that you're doing yourself any favors with, but it's super, super cheap. And therein lies the problem. We are, by our own design, by things we've allowed to happen to us at the hands of those who rule over us, we've allowed ourselves to be hooked on convenience and low cost. It's really, really, truly remarkable what we've done to ourselves on this, because our social arrangements have driven down people's wages. It's constricted people's financial resources. There have been innovations that we now view as essential that cost us hundreds of dollars every month. You ever looked at your phone bill? Your cell bill? You remember a time in life when a telephone bill was like $30 a month? I do. I miss those days. I really do. Of course, my phone does a lot more than in those days. But you start stacking these conveniences we've had, and notice that wages haven't really gone up at all in a meaningful way in a generation. And then you wonder why people's pocketbooks are so constrained. Factor in debt and all sorts of other things. And we've created this sort of situation where a lot of people simply can't afford to eat healthy. At least they think they can't. And it's, our own doing. We've done this to ourselves. And it doesn't seem to be a way out of it, because people already will probably want to click away thinking I'm giving you some, left or right-wing talking point here, when in reality, that's the one thing people agree on politically, is that that people have gotten screwed economically. I don't know what the solution is to that, though. And the final thing, of course, is when we're talking about eating in moderation, because I don't know what they mean by that, is there's a lack of basic food education. And there is this idea, hilarious idea, it's hysterical to me, that the food you see in the middle section of the store that we all tend to avoid has to be healthy. It can't be unhealthy, because if it was, it wouldn't be legal to sell. It's hard to say that and maintain a straight face. People believe that. There are people whose entire meal every day consists of hitting the fast food or DoorDash or whatnot, or eating a bag of Doritos and, maybe something with, quote, meat in it, so they eat a microwave burrito, and that's lunch. And they don't do it because, they're super broke, and that's all they can afford. My heart goes out to the people in that position. I was in a position like that for a very long time myself. No, this is a personal choice, and they believe it to be healthy because it wouldn't be legal to sell if it wasn't healthy. I want you to think about that one for a long time. Truly think about that one as you wrap your head around the sort of systemic problem we have now of rampant, unhealth that really characterizes modern living in America, and it's mostly America with this problem, but the rest of the Western world is catching up with us. So I don't know what eating in moderation means. In carnivore circles, eating in moderation tends to mean eat until you're no longer hungry, unless you're like me and I could put a 4-ounce steak down in front of me when I'm hungry, take 2 bites of it, and all of a sudden the hunger signals have gone. So, but for most other people, I don't know what eating in moderation is. Let me know if you've ever figured out what eating in moderation actually means, because I haven't. This rambling video you just watched, I never figured out what eating in moderation is. But if you have, let me know in the comments, please. And like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for your time today.